What is up, fight fans? I'm Jason Burgos for Sportsnaut.com, and I'm here to take a look back at UFC on ABC3, which is in the books. It was a pretty wild, pretty entertaining card for the promotion's return to New York, out on Long Island, outside of New York City. A lot of big moments, a few maybe fight of the year or fight round of the year contender kind of things happened at the card. Let's go through real quick some of the key moments. Of course, you have to start at the top. Brian Ortega versus Rodríguez. Unfortunately, fairly disappointing, and not because the action wasn't good. It was definitely respect going on early. Both were measured, but it seemed like Brian Ortega was gonna be in a little bit of trouble with Yair Rodriguez's speed and his ability to have diverse striking and stuff like that. He was able to get a takedown, but it looked like the fight's momentum was probably going in Yair Rodriguez's direction. But unfortunately, during an exchange at the ground, Brian Ortega looking to pull his arm out of a submission, dislocates his shoulder, fight ends there. I mean, it's a tough thing for both guys. The question is, where does Rodriguez go from here? There was a lot of talk of maybe him getting a title shot with a win. Does he deserve a title shot? No, I mean, unfortunately, a title shot, this is similar to the situation with Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight. Does he deserve a title shot? He has a better claim as a former champion, but he lost clearly to the guy who just lost himself. So he's lost to the guy that lost to the guy. So it's tough for him to get a title shot because his last fight, he won via an injury to Alexander Rakic. Same thing with Yair Rodriguez. He won via an injury. Tough way to build a resume off of jumping into a title shot from that. There has been suggestions that it could be Josh Emmett versus Yair Rodriguez in an interim title fight, and the champion Alexander Volkanovski seems to be okay with the idea. If that's what happens next, if Volkanovski really does want to move to lightweight for a champ kind of fight or something like that, Emmett versus Rodriguez might be the most likely thing. Rodriguez is still at the very top of the contender line, so is Emmett. It might be the way to go. I'm all for it. From there, where does Brian Ortega go? He's in a really tough spot now because of losing in his last fight, though it was a very highly competitive fight against the champion. Now he falls short in this fight. A lot of his most recent fights, he has come up short, though he's fighting the elite of the division. For me, if it was up to me, I'd like to see two possible opponents. Bryce Mitchell or Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar will be a very fun fight. Another kind of clash of styles, a strong grappler versus the strong striker, which kind of the Yair Rodriguez fight was going to be, or Bryce Mitchell. I'd be very much in for the Bryce Mitchell fight because Bryce Mitchell is one of the top young competitors in the division, rising fast, but another fantastic grappler, very strong wrestling. Like to see that clash of style. Does it cancel out? Does it become an outstanding wrestling battle on the mat, or does it cancel out into a striking war between them? And Bryce Mitchell striking should be tested. Let's see how good it is, because we haven't really seen it in an in-depth level, especially against elite competition. Moving on from there, Lemos submits Michelle Waterson Gomez. I thought Michelle Waterson was going to win this fight. I know she's had a tough run lately, but I thought maybe the experience is going to make a big difference. But Amanda Lemos shut up a lot of people, including myself, by submitting her in the second round. I thought maybe she wasn't ready for the higher end of the competition after losing to Jessica Andrade recently, but no, she clearly is. Wins definitively. The question now is for Michelle Waterson Gomez, what's next for her? She's lost 4 out of her last 5. She's clearly far removed from being a contender, and at her age, does she want to continue? I mean, what's in it for her to continue? Is she willing to just be a good, solid fighter in the division, or does she want to compete for gold? It's a tough thing. If she wants to compete for a title, it's a long road back to building up to that position. And I don't know if she's up for it at this point of her career in the later part of her 30s. So it should be interesting to see where she goes from next. And maybe was that her last fight in the UFC? Very well could have been. Moving on from there, another key women's fight on the card. Lauren Murphy beats Miesha Tate. Career-defining win for Lauren Murphy. She's pushing for another title fight, or at least to be in the contender talk. It's going to be tough. She was clearly outmatched versus Valentina Shevchenko, which is the situation for most people that fight Valentina. I don't see Lauren Murphy becoming a champion. She's going to be hard-pressed to even break into the elite of the contenders of the flyweight division just because of her age. She's still very good, well-rounded fighter, but just age with already what's happened. It's going to be tough for her to even get a title fight. That said, having Miesha Tate, a former bantamweight champion, one of the bigger names in women's MMA of the last 20 years, on your resume is a hell of a win, and that's still something to be super proud of, and something that she, will be talked about for the rest of her career, that she has a Miesha Tate on her resume. That said, where does Miesha Tate go from here? Came back out of retirement after a few years away to have kids. Is 1-1 at bantamweight. She didn't jump right into title contention after losing her recent fights. She goes down to flyweight for this fight. Loses here clearly. While she put up a good effort and tried to keep it competitive, she clearly lost this fight, and in general hasn't looked that great since her return, since coming out of retirement. And at her age, she's not going to just all of a sudden get way better, and she's only going to get less physically able to do the things she was. She's not in her prime anymore. So it's just like Waterson Gomez. It's an interesting question. Does Miesha Tate want to continue? She came back to be a champion. That's not going to happen, and that's probably not going to happen at 2 divisions. She's not going to go up to featherweight. Can't go down to strawweight. So where does she go? Does she really want to fight for titles, or is she fine just being a good, solid fighter in a couple divisions? And if she's okay with that, there's fights to be had. But if she wants to be a champion, it's not going to happen. So it might be time for a second retirement for Miesha Tate. Moving on from there, Ricky Simón, big win over Jack Shore, undefeated prospect. A lot of hype behind Jack Shore and his record and what he's a big English star and all that kind of stuff. But Ricky Simón definitively beats him. Second round submission. He deserves a big fight. He's won 5 in a row. He's in the right just outside of the top 10 of the bantamweight rankings. He's a legitimate, really good fighter, deserving of a high level competition. For me, there's 2 names that are, as far as I know, unbooked at this time. Pedro Munoz, after his weird incident with Sean O'Malley where he has the eye poke, and now Sean O'Malley just today on Wednesday was booked against Peter Yan coming up, so that fight is clearly, despite the fight ending with an eye poke, is not going to be run back. So Pedro Munoz has nobody on his dance card. And then there's Rob Font, who also lost recently in a tough fight. So either one of them would be very interesting. They're tougher fights for those guys in Font and Munoz, because they're taking somebody back of the line, but they're coming off losses. This is what happens, or not losses, but this is the kind of thing that happens when you're at the back of the top 10. You got to take a risk against guys behind you. You can't always get guys in front of you to move up. So those are 2 fights I would love to see. Beyond that, from what was really good fun UFC on ABC 3 card in Long Island, Matt Schnell and Sue Matarajai. Man, that second round of their fight was in freaking sanity. That's a round of the year kind of, and if it's not probably the round of the year, there's either going to be some sick stuff that's going to happen later this year, or people don't know what the hell they're voting for, because the back and forth, Schnell straight up the epitome of stealing victory from the jaws of defeat. Unbelievable stuff by Danger. Moving on from there, Shane Burgos continues his kind of streak of continuing to be undefeated in New York, but wasn't the greatest performance in the world. You wonder now that he's in the back of the rankings in the top 15 at featherweight. He's, Charles Jourdain, don't believe was ranked at that time. Didn't look exceptionally well, even in a hometown fight. Should Shane Burgos move to lightweight? Is this something he needs to think about? Maybe a lightweight move might be better for him, especially with his contract up. He's probably, of course, going to want to come to the UFC, but maybe a switch in division. He's kind of always been big for featherweight, but not fast. Maybe he moves to lightweight. He is fast. That's an interesting thought to kind of put a new kickstart to his career. And finally, man, bad luck for Herbert Burns, man. That is a tough thing. Him and Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo gets the finish in the second after the ref just pretty much called it off because Herbert Burns just looked so exhausted. Had the fight, but as the announcers mentioned, it looked like he maybe hurt his knee, and in fact he did tore his ACL a second time. Not sure if it's the same leg, but either way, if it's a different leg, to come all the way back from an ACL injury to recovery, the months of rehab and all that stuff, to then do it again, you understand why immediately after the loss he was highly emotional, just knowing what he's going to have to go all through, knowing that pain, and he did it again to go through. I feel bad for him. Speedy recovery to Herb Burns, very cool guy. Those are my final thoughts on UFC ABC 3.